Under the glow of champagne flutes and polite applause, I stood quietly at the edge of the ballroom, watching as Nathan Cross escorted Sienna Blake into the center of my own celebration party. The irony burned my throat more than the dry wine I had just swallowed. This was supposed to be the night where years of loyalty and sacrifice were acknowledged, where the company's leadership formally recognized my pivotal role in securing the bid that had kept Cross Corporation at the top of the food chain. But instead, he brought her the white moonlight he once whispered about in passing, the one who had vanished overseas, only to return now with glittering eyes and a perfect smile. "Avery," Nathan said in that smooth, calculated tone of his, the one he used in board meetings when about to cut someone loose, "Sienna's not used to the office space here. I'd like you to vacate your office for her, effective tomorrow." The crowd around us stilled. My hand clenched around my glass, but I forced a smile, the kind that made my jaw hurt. "Of course, Mr. Cross. Anything for the company." I didn't argue. I never did. Instead, I turned that night into my silent farewell. The next morning, I came in early, packed every file, every pen, even the little succulent on my desk that had wilted in the corner light, and left a tidy space behind. Before lunch, I submitted my resignation and walked straight out the door without saying goodbye. The HR director looked uneasy when I handed over my badge. "Mr. Cross won't like this," she murmured. "He'll mock me before lunch." I replied flatly. "Tell him I said good luck." As expected, he did mock me. "Let her go," Nathan said to HR with that infuriating smirk. "Let's see who'd dare hire her after leaving Cross Corporation." He said it loud enough for others to hear. I knew the rumors that would follow. Everyone would bet I'd come crawling back within weeks. I didn't care. They didn't know what I'd done for him. Years ago, when Nathan was still the overlooked son of a woman his father never claimed, drowning beneath the shadow of his legitimate siblings, it was me who pulled him above the water. I drafted his first major bid, stayed up for 72 hours straight to fix a proposal that saved his position, covered for his strategic errors, and whispered the right things to the board when he was too proud to beg. I never asked for recognition. I just stood by his side. I thought that meant something. It didn't. The final insult came in the form of a receptionist's whisper. "Ms. Bennett, Mr. Cross said there's still some trash left in your office. He asked you to clean it up personally." I returned, if only out of spite. The door was half closed, and I heard him before I saw him. "Don't be mad, Sienna," Nathan cooed softly, his voice lower than I'd ever heard it in a conference room. "She'll be here soon to toss out whatever's left. Just ignore it." My heart should have gone numb by now, but something in his tone, it wasn't professional. It wasn't casual, it was intimate. Too intimate. I stepped in. They both turned. Sienna's hand rested lightly on his chest, as if she belonged there. "Clean up your trash?" I echoed, my voice sharp. "Who do you think you are, Nathan? And who decides what's garbage?" I walked past them, collected my plant and a few stray folders. Sienna followed me, her stilettos tapping deliberately behind. "Ms. Bennett," she said sweetly, placing her hand on my arm, "let me help you." Her nails dug into my skin with quiet malice. I yanked my arm away, and she stumbled. No, she performed a perfect fall, dramatic and timed, and the succulent flew from my hands. She landed with a gasp, right into Nathan's arms. He shoved me, hard, then dropped to cradle her like she was porcelain. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he snarled. "You pushed her." I hadn't. He knew it. But the broken bits of ceramic on the floor didn't care for truth. My palm split open as I hit the ground, blood soaking the edge of my sleeve. "Apologize," he said coldly, dragging me towards Sienna like I was some misbehaving child. "Apologize to her right now." I didn't respond. "Say sorry for making her cry, for the cold coffee yesterday, for the board meeting last week when you made her look bad. Say sorry for existing in her space." I bit back my pride and bowed. "Once, twice, 3 times. I'm sorry, Ms. Blake." My voice shook. My body didn't. "Can I leave now?" His response was a slap that rang through the open office. "Stop playing the victim," he growled. "Pick up every piece on that floor with your bare hands." A crowd had gathered. No one moved. No one stopped him. I crawled forward, fingers trembling, lifting each shard like it was a dagger pressed into my dignity. Blood smudged across the linoleum, and the pain blurred my vision. When I finished, I stood up, held my chin high, and walked through the parted crowd, refusing the tissue one of the receptionists offered. My hand was still bleeding. My heart had bled long before. At the door, I heard it again. "Ms. Bennett," someone called. "Mr. Cross asked you to stay." I stayed. Not because of him, but because Sienna Blake clasped my hand during a follow-up meeting and said, "I think Ms. Bennett and I could do great things together. For the company." That was her victory pose. That was the leash. Nathan revoked my resignation, grinning like he'd won. "If Sienna hadn't asked, I'd have kicked you out." He looked at me like I was a thorn beneath his shoe. She added softly, "I don't know what I did to offend Ms. Bennett. I really just want us to get along." I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled and nodded. Of course. The office I once ruled was now hers. I was moved to a tiny cubicle just outside her door, my name removed from all the memos. Nathan didn't even look at me during meetings. He only showed up to deliver lattes and smiles to Sienna, who always made sure to giggle just loudly enough that I could hear. She made a show of asking me to print things she didn't need, of ordering me to refill her water while Nathan stood beside her. I reminded myself of Nathan's promises. Once I stabilized my position, he had whispered one night when he still visited me after hours, "We'll be together. I'm only with her for politics." I was the woman behind the curtain. She was the golden prop he paraded in front of shareholders. I wanted to believe him. I clung to that belief like a fool. One afternoon, she dropped a takeout box on my desk. "Lunch from Marlowe's. Have you tried it? I heard you wanted to go." I froze. Marlowe's was the restaurant Nathan refused to visit with me. Too upscale. Avery. What if people start asking questions? She leaned in. "Yun, Nathan and I went today. He said you'd like their short ribs. Don't let us down." She grinned, then opened the box and offered it. I pushed it away. In the tug, it spilled across her silk blouse. Sienna gasped like I had stabbed her. Nathan ran in just as she began to cry. "Avery, how long are you going to keep bullying Sienna?" he roared. "She brings you food and you throw it at her?" I began. "Enough," he snapped. "Apologize." Again. She wept into his chest. "This blouse was a gift from you," she whispered. "I loved it." "You'll wash it," Nathan ordered me. "By hand. Today." My throat closed around the words. I wanted to scream. As they left, whispers filled the hallway. Guess the secretary was just a rumor after all. Sienna's got the real power now. I stood there surrounded by cold rice and public shame, promising myself, never again. Never. Again. The blouse was ruined. That much was clear from the oily blotches that spread like bruises across the silk fabric, glistening under the harsh LED lighting of the office corridor. But it wasn't the blouse that haunted me that night, it was the way Nathan's voice cracked like a whip when he barked the order to wash it, by hand, as if I were some poorly trained intern who had spilled coffee on her superior. The humiliation clung to my skin tighter than the dried blood still flaking off my palm from the succulent incident days earlier. I stayed late that night, took the blouse with me because refusing would have caused another scene, another snide whisper among my coworkers who already looked at me like I was a rejected relic from an outdated campaign. I went straight to the dry cleaners instead. Washing silk by hand was futile, and I wasn't about to ruin it further and give them another reason to accuse me of malice. The dry cleaner assured me it could be restored, but at a price. I handed over my credit card without blinking, the sting in my wallet a small price to pay to avoid further shame. I was exhausted when I returned home, too tired to even remove my heels, too numb to cry. I collapsed onto my couch, turned off my phone, and stared at the ceiling, hoping sleep would come before my thoughts did. They didn't. My thoughts, sharp and vivid, dragged me backward to when Nathan used to bring me tea during overnight projects, to when we snuck glances across boardrooms and exchanged secrets beneath the table, like two kids hiding from the world. But that Nathan didn't exist anymore. Or maybe he never did. Maybe I had just imagined him into someone better because I needed to believe the sacrifices had meaning. The next day, I returned the blouse carefully folded in a garment bag. Sienna accepted it with the delicacy of royalty accepting tribute. Thank you, Avery, she said, her lips curling. Next time, try not to spill. She said it like a joke, but I caught the glint in her eye. Nathan didn't say a word, just passed behind me as if I were invisible, then stepped into her office and closed the door without a glance in my direction. The glass was frosted but not soundproof. I heard her laugh. I heard him say her name like it mattered. I heard every crack in my dignity reverberate through the walls. A few days passed like that, a slow crawl through molasses, with my pride bleeding out little by little. Then came the dinner. Not a formal one. Not a company gala, just a casual gathering at a high-end private club. I was only supposed to deliver a cake. Sienna had ordered it for the event, and for reasons only known to herself, decided I should be the one to fetch it. I could have said no. I should have. But by then I'd already realized that no was no longer in my vocabulary, not when it came to her, not when Nathan allowed her to puppet me like a marionette in a glass box. The delivery location was one of those sleek, members-only lounges with velvet curtains, leather chairs, and low lighting that made everything seem richer, sexier, more dangerous. The waiter led me to the door of a private room, and I reached for the handle, then froze. I heard my name. Not whispered. Laughed. Secretary Bennett? Logan Reed's voice was unmistakable, cool, amused, dangerous. Nathan's mortal enemy and head of the Reed Group. Heard rumors she was more than a secretary. Care to clarify, Mr. Cross? Nathan's reply was colder than dry ice. Some women like to inflate their importance by leveraging proximity. I don't entertain delusions. Sienna's voice followed like honey laced with poison. Avery's loyal to the company. She's capable. But Mr. Cross and I have no secrets. My stomach dropped. My fingers curled around the cake box like it was the only thing anchoring me to reality. I didn't even realize I had opened the door until I was standing in the spotlight, every eye turning toward me, some surprised, some amused. Sienna feigned shock. Avery, why are you standing there like a ghost?
Come in.
She made a show of pulling me forward, her arm looped around mine in a gesture that looked affectionate but felt like shackles. Nathan looked up, eyes narrowing. I met his gaze without flinching. Your cake, I said quietly, placing the box on the table. Excuse me. So diligent, Logan murmured with a smirk. Working after hours? Mr. Cross must run a tight ship. Nathan didn't respond. His jaw tightened. Logan's eyes flicked between us. Curious. Actually, Miss Bennett, I've been looking to fill a managerial role. Your name's come up. I wonder if you'd be open to new opportunities. She's not available, Nathan snapped before I could open my mouth. Logan's smile widened. Then maybe she can speak for herself. What do you think, Miss Bennett? I forced a professional smile. I'm grateful for the offer, Mr. Reed. But I'm still committed to Cross Corporation. Nathan's lips twitched in satisfaction. It made me sick. I turned to leave, and this time, no one stopped me. But their voices followed me all the way out, like chains I couldn't shake off. Back at home, I barely got through brushing my teeth before I collapsed on the edge of my bed, clothes still on. The door lock beeped. Nathan. I hadn't given him the new code. He must have remembered it from before. He stormed in like he still had the right, tie loose, collar open, rage simmering just beneath his skin. What the hell was that? He demanded. Are you screwing Logan Reed? I laughed. I actually laughed. I spoke 12 words to him. You heard them all. You embarrass me, he shouted. He offered you a job in front of everyone, maybe because he treats his employees like people instead of stepping stones. That was the wrong thing to say. He grabbed me by the wrist and slammed me against the wall, his eyes wild. You think you're better than me now? His fingers were bruising my skin. I could barely breathe. Let go of me. Tell me what's going on between you two. Nothing, I choked. Nothing's going on. Unlike you and Sienna, I don't jump into bed with anyone who flatters me. His grip loosened just enough for me to breathe. I'm not with her like that, he said. It's politics. I need the Tang family's support. And I was what? Your cover story? Your emotional trash can. You're everything, he whispered, pressing his forehead to mine. But I have to play the game. Just a little longer. His lips touched mine, and I let them. Not because I believed him. but because I needed the illusion.
Just one more time.
I let him stay that night. I let him curl around me like a lie I couldn't shake. And I hated myself for it. The next day, I wore long sleeves to hide the bruises and returned to the office like nothing had happened. But something had shifted. The sparkle in Sienna's eye dulled when she saw me. Nathan avoided my gaze during meetings. I wasn't just a secretary anymore. I was a wild card. And that made me dangerous. The company was gearing up for the biggest bid of the year, a partnership with Graham Industries that could shift the market. Nathan called a strategy meeting. Everyone attended. He divided tasks, spoke with charisma, but I noticed how his eyes flicked to me when he said, "Avery and Sienna will co-lead the planning phase." It was a trap. I knew it, but I nodded anyway. Of course. Sienna smiled sweetly. "Let's do our best, Avery." But I could already see the war behind her eyes. And I was done playing defense. I was going to burn the board this time and rebuild it with my name at the center. The conference room reeked of tension masked by filtered air and stale cologne, the kind of synthetic sterility that tried too hard to conceal the rotting beneath the surface. Nathan stood at the head of the table, sleeves rolled just enough to look approachable, commanding the room with the precision of a man who'd memorized power. "Avery, Sienna," he said, voice even, "you'll oversee the Graham bid from start to finish. This is our biggest opportunity in 5 years. I trust you both won't let me down." The words were clean. The implications were filthy. I didn't miss the twitch in Sienna's jaw. She hadn't expected to share the credit. I hadn't expected to be included at all. "We'll deliver, Mr. Cross," I said calmly. Sienna nodded with that rehearsed, sugar-laced smile she wore like armor. When the meeting ended, everyone else filtered out with their faces blank, their minds calculating. Sienna caught up to me near the elevator, her heels a staccato warning on the marble floor. "Avery, I know you're used to doing things your way, but let's be honest. You and I both know this project is above your pay grade." I turned to face her, letting silence stretch between us until it was almost cruel. "You're right," I said. "It's above yours too. That's why we should probably get started." Her lips parted, slightly offended, surprised, maybe even a little afraid. She didn't reply. I walked away without another word, the echo of my own footsteps reminding me that silence, when used precisely, could be louder than a scream. The workload was monumental. Graham Industries was notorious for rejecting cookie-cutter pitches. They wanted innovation, precision, something disruptive but reliably a contradiction only the desperate or the brilliant would attempt to reconcile. I became both. My days stretched into nights and bled into dawns. I lived off vending machine coffee and whatever flavor of silence Nathan was serving that week. Sienna, meanwhile, showed up late, left early, and spent her time curating outfits more than content. She offered vague suggestions when asked, but contributed nothing substantial. I kept every file locked, every draft encrypted. Trust was no longer a currency I dealt in. One morning, I came in early to print a revision, and something fell off. My chair was slightly turned, not how I left it. The keyboard was warm. My stomach clenched. I checked the file logs. One of my drafts had been accessed at 3:27 a.m. A copy was sent to a flash drive. My blood froze. I reviewed the security footage with the help of an IT friend from another department. Frame by frame, we watched Sienna slip into my workstation, look around, and plug in a USB. She didn't open the files on screen. She copied the entire folder. No fingerprints, no evidence left except the footage. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I began cross-referencing timestamps, digging deeper, staying later, becoming colder. Then came the presentation day. Nathan stormed into the office, eyes wild. "Why the hell is Graham's team saying we plagiarized their competitor's pitch?" he demanded. He threw the printed plan across the desk. "This is identical to what Reed Group submitted yesterday. Line for line." My heart stopped. That's not possible. I finished our plan alone. No one else had access. Sienna stepped forward, wrapping faux concern in her voice. Avery was in charge of the files. I was mostly there for oversight. Maybe she mixed something up? "That's a lie," I said instantly. "You accessed my files 2 nights ago. I have footage." Nathan looked between us, fury simmering. You're saying she stole the plan? That's a serious accusation, Avery. I'm saying someone copied my work, I said, voice steady. And I'll prove it. He didn't defend me. He didn't defend her. He dismissed us both and told me to wait for a decision. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the footage over and over, memorizing every detail. I filed a formal report to upper management, attached the video, included digital timestamps, access logs, witness accounts. Then I waited. When the summons came, it wasn't from HR. It was from Nathan. His office was dim, blinds half drawn like a confession booth trying to hide from judgment. I saw your evidence, he said without looking at me. We also traced the USB to Liam, the new hire. He said Sienna gave it to him and told him to upload it as a public-facing file. He didn't know what was inside. And I pressed. So, what happens now? He rubbed his temple like my question pained him. Sienna didn't know the plan was confidential. I stared at him. She broke into my workspace, copied my files, handed them to a subordinate, and you're saying she didn't know? You should have locked your files, he said, and I could feel something inside me break. So this is my fault now. I'm not blaming anyone, he deflected, voice tight. But the board thinks it's better if we keep this internal. If word gets out that Sienna leaked confidential data, it could destroy her career. What about mine? I asked, voice cracking despite myself. What about everything I've built? You're going to let me take the fall? It's a temporary announcement, he said, like that made it better. Just until this dies down. You're sacrificing me, I whispered. For her. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Nathan? He opened his mouth. Closed it. Didn't answer. I walked out. The next day, the official company-wide memo blamed me. Due to negligence in data handling by project manager Bennett, I didn't read the rest. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through messages from colleagues, some curious, some cold, some pretending they didn't know me. I stormed into Nathan's office. You let them pin this on me. You destroyed my name. Lower your voice, he warned. This isn't helping. Helping who? Sienna? My voice was shaking now. You let her use me like a stepping stone and then toss me aside like garbage. This isn't personal. It is to me. You're being irrational. I'm being betrayed. I spat. And you're standing there pretending like this is just another Monday meeting. Avery, he said softly, like he was tired. Just be patient. Let this pass. After we get the Graham contract, everything will go back to normal. I laughed bitterly. Normal? You think I want normal with you now? I quit. His eyes widened, then narrowed. You're making a mistake. So did you, I snapped. And when Graham signs with someone else, you'll realize which one of us was actually valuable. I left before he could reply, marched straight to HR, signed the resignation, and walked out without packing a single thing. The air outside was sharp and clean. I didn't realize I was crying until someone handed me a tissue. Logan Reed, leaning against a red sports car, like a devil in a tailored coat. Didn't think I'd find you out here, he said. You always cry so publicly? I sniffed and tried to speak, but it came out as a strangled sound. Don't, he said gently. Not for them. I sat in his passenger seat while the city lights blurred past the windows. I told him everything. He listened. Didn't interrupt. Then, calmly, he said, come work for me. Why? Because you're brilliant. And because I like hiring people Nathan Cross is stupid enough to lose. I didn't answer right away. But in my heart, I'd already said yes. Logan's office was nothing like Nathan's. Sit didn't suffocate with the weight of legacy or drip with cold, curated dominance. It was warm, modern, filled with dark wood and soft natural light that spilled in through panoramic windows framing the city's skyline like a promise. There was no trace of ego in the room, only quiet confidence, the kind of confidence that didn't need to be loud to be commanding. You'll be heading the Graham project, he said without flourish, flipping open a folder and sliding it toward me like he was offering me a loaded weapon. Project manager title, full creative control, your own team. Think you can handle that? The corners of my mouth twitched. I just came from a place where they buried me alive and handed my head to the press. So yeah, I think I can handle it. He gave me a small, knowing smirk, leaned back, and laced his fingers behind his head. That's what I like to hear. But the truth was, walking into Reed Group felt like stepping onto foreign soil, familiar in structure, alien in culture. My title carried weight, but so did the stairs. Whispers followed me into elevators, break rooms, conference calls. Everyone knew where I came from. They also knew I was brought in by Logan Reed himself, which meant power, but also scrutiny. The first team meeting was a study in subtle resistance. They were polite, too polite. They nodded, smiled, but their eyes measured every word I said like it might be a test. This project won't run itself. I began, laying out timelines and deliverables. And I don't care if you've been here a year or a decade, if your work doesn't match your title, I'll know. Let's be clear. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to win. A few raised eyebrows. One scoff. No direct challenges.
Yet.
That would come later. Over the next week, I dove into the project with surgical focus. Graham Group didn't want another recycled pitch, they wanted a vision. Something scalable, disruptive, and future-proof. I reconstructed the entire approach, mapped out new data pipelines, introduced sustainability metrics, and refined client interaction models. The hours were brutal, but the burn felt different here, productive, not punishing. Still, the resistance lingered. Assignments delayed, files misplaced, key meetings forgotten.
They didn't trust me yet.
And maybe part of me didn't blame them. I had parachuted in, a symbol of executive favoritism. So, I changed my tactic. I stopped issuing orders. I started asking questions. Late nights turned into impromptu work sessions with coffee and open laptops. I listened. I implemented suggestions. When I made a change, I explained when it just what. Slowly, the frost thawed. And then came the breakthrough. During a strategy session, one of the quieter team members, Marissa, hesitantly proposed a structural flow that simplified the client onboarding process. It was genius. We're using that, I said immediately. She blinked. Really? Yes, I said. And I want you to present it to Mr. Reed next week. Her shock was almost painful. That was when I realized what kind of management they were used to. After that, the mood shifted. People showed up earlier. Collaboration flowed more freely. I stopped being the outsider. I started becoming their anchor. And just when I began to breathe again, Nathan called. It started as a text, cold, presumptive. We need to talk. I ignored it. Then came the call. I let it ring. He called again. And again. On the fourth call, I answered, not because I wanted to hear his voice, but because I wanted to hear how desperate he'd become. Avery, he said, voice raw. Can we meet? Why? Because I made a mistake. I laughed. You made a business decision. Own it. I fired Sienna, he blurted. Silence stretched. She admitted to the leak. I should have trusted you. I should have protected you. I was wrong. You were a coward, I replied flatly. You chose comfort over character. And now you're bleeding for it. Come back, he said. Let's start over. Start what over, Nathan? The lies? The manipulation? The part where you destroy my career for someone who plays helpless? I love you. My throat tightened. Not from longing, but from disgust. You loved the version of me that made your life easier. That's not love. That's convenience. I hung up. He didn't call again. But the damage he'd done lingered like smoke, visible, suffocating, always on the edge of fading but never truly gone. Graham Group's review date was fast approaching. Logan called me into his office one evening, shirt sleeves rolled up, eyes bloodshot from his own work. You've done something incredible, Avery. I've never seen the team so unified. You've got one last thing to down that boardroom. You're giving me the floor? I asked. They're expecting you. He shook his head. They're expecting results. And I trust you to deliver them. His belief in me was quiet but complete. It didn't come with strings. It came with space. And I realized then how dangerous it was to be seen without being possessed. On the day of the presentation, I wore black not as armor, but as a signal. I was no longer mourning the girl I used to be. I was here to replace her. As I walked into the conference hall and saw the cross-corporation team seated across the room, my heart didn't skip a beat. It didn't even flinch. Nathan was there, looking thinner, paler. Sienna's seat was empty. The silence between us roared louder than any argument. "Good morning," I said to the panel, my voice steady. "My name is Avery Bennett, and today I'm going to show you how we help not only build a better infrastructure, but a better future." And then I began not with slides or jargon, but with clarity, intent, and undeniable fire. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here for victory. And this time, no one would take it from me. The applause that followed my final sentence wasn't thunder, it was deliberate, powerful, measured like the approving nod of a king. Graham's board didn't rise to their feet or shower me with exaggerated praise. They didn't need to. The tight-lipped smiles, the satisfied murmurs between suits, and the subtle inclination of Mr. Graham's head as he extended his hand told me everything I needed to know. We had won. Not just impressed, not just survived, but won. I walked back to my seat, pulse steady, eyes forward. Across the table, Nathan Cross looked like a man trying to remember what it felt like to breathe. He stared at me as if I'd become something unrecognizable, a creature he once tamed now walking out of its cage in high heels and authority. The moment the presentation ended, Logan clapped me on the back with an energy that cracked through the decorum of the room. That, he said, grinning, was lethal. In the best way. I wanted to laugh, but the lump in my throat was too real. All I could manage was a soft, hoarse, "Thanks for trusting me." "Never had a doubt," he replied, and I almost believed him. Back at Reed Group, the atmosphere shifted like a tide turning in my favor. Where once there had been wariness, there was now admiration. My team, once reluctant, now looked to me with genuine respect, maybe even pride. Promotions were handed out. Raises announced. Logan, true to his word, didn't just reward results. He rewarded loyalty. My name began appearing in internal newsletters, client briefs, even whispered praise from senior executives I'd never directly spoken to. I became visible, tangible, and for the first time in years, I began to feel like I existed outside of someone else's shadow. But Nathan wasn't done with me. He never really was. It started smell an email from his assistant, framed as a follow-up about overlapping vendor contacts. Then came the flowers. White orchids, my favorite. No card, but I didn't need one. The next day, a note slid under my office door in handwriting I knew better than my own. "I made a mistake.
I know that now."
"Can we talk?" "Nathan," I didn't respond. I didn't even throw it away. I left it right there on the floor, a crumpled reminder that the past couldn't be scrubbed out with apologies. 2 days later, he came in person. I was walking out of the lobby, phone in one hand, coffee in the other, when he stepped in front of me like some ghost from a chapter one thought I'd already burned. "Avery," he said, breathless. "You look powerful." I didn't stop walking. "Step aside, Nathan. Just hear me out." "No, please." He sounded hollow, desperate, a man unraveling by the seams. "I let Sienna go. It was never supposed to go that far. She manipulated everything. I see that now." I stopped, not for him but for myself. I wanted to look him in the eye one last time and remember why I would never go back. "You didn't fall for her tricks, Nathan. You were complicit. You watched me bleed and asked me to mop the floor after." His jaw clenched. "I thought I was protecting the company." "No," I said quietly. "You were protecting yourself. You always do." He looked like he might cry, but I had no sympathy left to spare. "I still love you," he said, and it was almost pathetic, the way he said it, like a lifeline thrown into a storm he created. I leaned in close enough to watch the hope die in his eyes. "Then maybe next time, you shouldn't treat the woman you love like a disposable liability." Logan appeared behind me then, timing uncanny, presence commanding. He didn't say anything, just placed a hand gently at the small of my back, a silent but undeniable signal. Nathan's face hardened. "So, this is what it's about?" "Him." I turned to Logan, then back to Nathan.
"No. This is about me."
"You were never the point. I just didn't realize it until you broke me." And then I walked away, not because I needed to, but because it felt good to leave him behind with nothing but his regrets. The next week, Sienna made her own return, only this time. She wasn't gilded in power or flanked by handlers. She stood outside the Reed Group building in the pouring rain, mascara running, heels in her hand like a child who had finally lost her toy. Security blocked her entrance, but she screamed for me like a lunatic. Avery. Avery, I need to explain. He lied to me too. We were both used. Logan saw the commotion from his office. He didn't hesitate. He called security, told them to add her face to the banned list. I watched from the window, expression unreadable, heart quiet. Pity was a luxury I no longer afforded. Logan later came to my desk, coffee in hand, tie slightly loosened like always. You okay? I nodded. Do you want to talk about it? I shook my head. But thank you. I meant what I said, you know, he added after a pause. When I said I'd never doubted you. I know. And I also meant it when I said you were lethal. His smile was small, respectful, something careful behind it. It's dangerous how much I admire you, Avery. I didn't answer at first. I looked at him, really looked at him. Logan Reed wasn't Nathan Cross. He didn't need to own people to value them. He didn't need to burn others to stay warm. And maybe that was scarier than all the betrayal I had endured because it meant this time, the risk was real. Logan, I said slowly, I like you. But I don't want to blur lines that don't need to be blurred. He raised a brow, but nodded.
Fair.
Partners first. Coffee later. I smiled.
Deal.
That night, I went home alone. Not sad. Not lonely. Just whole. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was surviving. I was building. Creating something that had my name, my spine, my truth carved into it. Nathan's name eventually disappeared from the headlines. Sienna's meltdown became office gossip that faded with time.
But mine?
Mine was just beginning to echo in places I hadn't even stepped into yet. And I wasn't done. Not even close. Fall bled into winter, and with it came the kind of crisp silence that settled in your bones before it reached your skin. The city outside buzzed with holiday energy, warm lights dangling from cold steel, strangers wrapped in scarves and fleeting kindness, all moving with an urgency that had nothing to do with purpose and everything to do with pretending they weren't lost. I watched them sometimes from the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new corner office, sipping coffee that no longer tasted like survival but routine, listening to the hum of a company that had finally stopped doubting me. Reed Group was expanding, and with it, so was my title. Logan had officially named me Director of Strategic Development. The press release came out that morning. My name in bold. My title clean. No footnotes about who I used to be. No asterisk beside the woman they once buried. Just Avery Bennett, unchained, unapologetic, undeniable. The congratulations came swiftly. Email threads, client calls, lunch invites from people who once couldn't remember my name. I accepted some. Declined most. I wasn't here to bask. I was here to build. But Logan insisted on taking me to dinner. Not a celebration, he said, leaning against my doorframe with that half-lazy grin that didn't fool me anymore. Just a reminder. You earned this. Don't let anyone make you feel like you stumbled into it. We went to a quiet place tucked behind a bookstore, dimly lit, jazz humming low like a secret between strangers. The wine was aged and expensive. The food was warm and unpretentious. Logan talked about the future of the company, about potential acquisitions, about markets we hadn't touched yet. But every now and then, his words drifted into something softer, personal. You're different now, he said at one point, looking at me not as a colleague, but as something more fragile and rare. You don't flinch when people doubt you. You don't wait for permission to lead. I met his gaze, calm but sharp. That's because I finally realized I was never the problem. I was just surrounded by people who needed me to believe I was. He nodded slowly, then raised his glass. To staying surrounded by the right people, then.
I didn't clink my glass to his.
I just looked at him and said, let's hope the right people stay for the right reasons. Because that's what scared me most, not betrayal, not loss, not even heartbreak. But the idea that someone could want me only until I became inconvenient again. The past has a way of ghosting your future. And in my case, it came knocking one last time. A week after the promotion, a small envelope appeared on my desk.
No stamp.
No label. Just my name. Inside was a wedding invitation. Nathan Cross and Isabel Chin. I stared at it for exactly 3 seconds before closing it and placing it face down in the drawer. It wasn't pain I felt. Not bitterness. Not nostalgia. Just relief. Like something that had once pressed against my lungs had finally stopped crushing me. I didn't go to the wedding. But I heard whispers afterward. Isabel was from a wealthy real estate family based in Seattle. Strategic match. Loveless, reportedly. The media praised the union. The guests whispered about the hollow smile Nathan wore. I didn't need to hear any of it to know the truth. A man like Nathan didn't marry love. He married leverage. Meanwhile, Reed Group won a 3-year contract with a European firm, and I was flown to London for negotiations. I stood in boardrooms across oceans, laid out strategies in rooms where accents collided and currency symbols changed, but the hunger stayed the same. Somewhere between Heathrow and a rooftop dinner overlooking the Thames, I realized that the version of me who once cried in parking lots and begged for recognition had been buried so deeply she'd never resurface again. And yet, closure has a strange appetite. One night, long after I returned, I received a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Later I listened. Avery. Nathan's voice rasped, quiet, worn. I just wanted to say congratulations. I saw the press release. You look happy. I mean it. You really do. There was a pause, long and awkward. I never knew how to love you properly. Maybe I never will.
But part of me always wanted to.
I hope someone better figures out how. I deleted the message. Not out of anger, but because I'd already forgiven him. Forgiveness didn't mean a second chance. It just meant I no longer needed to carry him with me. A few months later, Logan invited me to a small leadership retreat in Aspen. There were just 5 of us top-level strategists, all fierce, all brilliant. The snow was pristine, the air thin and biting, and the house we stayed in overlooked a frozen lake that looked like it belonged in a painting. One night, after the others went to bed, Logan and I stood on the deck, wrapped in coats, sipping bourbon from crystal glasses. You never let anyone close, he said softly, his breath misting in the cold. Not really. That's the cost, I replied. Of being broken? Of being rebuilt. He looked at me like he was trying to decide if pushing further would be worth the risk. Then he simply said, if I waited, would there ever be a chance? I didn't answer right away. I looked out at the lake, at the moonlight cutting across the ice like silver threads pulling 2 lives together. Maybe, I said, voice hushed. But not because you waited. Because you stayed. He smiled, quiet and sure. We didn't touch. We didn't need to. Some connections aren't about heat. They're about endurance. Months passed. The story of Avery Bennett, once a discarded secretary, now a rising power in the corporate world, began making the rounds in industry panels, mentorship circles, and quiet conversations between women in glass offices who had once been silenced by men like Nathan Cross. I became a name, a face, a signal. And somewhere along the way, I became something even rarer, a woman who owned her narrative completely. Not borrowed. Not bargained. Not broken.
Just mine.